On this episode of Two Jakes Talkin', it's myself and Jake Odorizzi. Am I saying Odorizzi right?
Correct.
Do people
100%.
slaughter it?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
more so when I was younger than now. It's kind of, I guess, a little more commonly known
Well,
now, but I've heard just about every pronunciation you can imagine. So when people like trail off and don't commit to it, I know they're trying to get to me.
Jake Odorizzi.
That's my specialty.
Yes.
Is Odo the nickname?
Yes. Yeah, it's short and simple, and I think everybody can get that one.
I like that.
Yeah,
So we
crisp.
chatted with you earlier today. Pitchers have camp pretty easy, huh?
Yeah, I mean, if I just could have left after I was done playing catch, I would have been out of here to catch like a breakfast at some place still. But no, there's a lot of work to be done after the fact. Like, got to get treatment, workout, that whole sort of thing. The unsexy stuff, the stuff that behind the scenes, that's the important stuff. So we got a lot of time to do that. So there's not a lot of, we got. You got to do it. That's kind of what it boils down to.
Have things changed in camp from last year with a lot of the coaches have left and you got new coaches? Is it the same philosophy, just guys bumped up, or is it anything completely new?
Everything's pretty relatively the same with Rocco. Rocco kind of didn't shift anything, but we've had, not too many times I've seen this many coaches leave and go different areas off of Major League staff. And good for them, though, that they get different opportunities. I've been with Shelty for a long time, and to see him get a manager job is really cool. And he'll do great to it. And, he was a finalist for this job before Rocco got it. So there's a lot of people over there that are really happy that he's got that job. And, I guess that's a good thing when your coaches kind of get poached a little bit. It means you're doing things the right way. And, happy for them all.
You said it right at the end there. If you're winning, then people start poaching you, and that's how it goes a little bit. We, John, I should mention JOMBOY and Trevor Plouffe are here. Besides the Two Jake show, but we'll just keep running it anyways. We talk some pitching stuff, and dude, like that's awesome. Like we love that stuff because, we talked like. I won't even say analytics light. It was like analytics light, and you were talking, some spin rate stuff. How much do you get into that, and how much do the Twins organization get into that, or does it boil down to you, or how's that work?
Yeah, I think we alluded to it a little bit earlier, but with Wes being in charge now, I think they've taken more of an analytical side, and we have a lot of these cool toys that you hear talk about, force plates and Rapsodos, TrackMan, Edgertronics. So I think that's pretty generic with the last three in just about every camp now. But the problem with all the analytics, you have to have somebody to decipher it for you. Kind of what we had spoken about earlier. It's you just can't buy it and you're automatically going to be better. You have to know what you're looking for as a player, and then B, you're going to have guys that have to be able to interpret it because there's so much information. If you really take a deep dive into things, you can get lost really quickly and kind of transform yourself into a pitcher you can't be or you're not supposed to be. So there takes a little bit of brain power from the pitcher as well to know I need maybe an improvement here. I could improve in these areas, as opposed to, hey, this is all your data. Let's make it all better. Like that's just not a realistic aspect to it. But we got a lot of good people here that know how to to make the little tweaks and get you maybe a little bit more what you're looking for, as opposed to you trying to figure it out yourself.
Who's doing that here for you? Because when I was in Philly, that was kind of where I saw analytics really being brought down to the clubhouse. Because a lot of times it used to stay in the front office, which didn't make any sense to me. Because if you have these numbers, you want your players to improve these numbers. It makes sense that you have to go tell them the numbers, and that just wasn't a thing. So in Philly, we had Sam Fold, and he was kind of like a player liaison. He was the perfect guy for that.
Super Sam,
smart dude, and relatable. So he'd bring the numbers down. He'd talk to us about it, what we should do to improve, whatever. Is there anybody that's doing that here?
So we're all doing that in the locker room now. We have our analytics team that's on a daily basis with us. They have a little room off to where Nate's at in his little video room across the hall. That's their little area. And with Wes being here and his background with analytics, we have Colby and Frankie who do Frankie does like the infielders and hitters, and Colby does the pitching side. He and Wes were together at Arkansas, so they kind of have that mashup of what they're looking for already. So it's a lot easier that he brought a guy that's up to speed with what he's looking for instead of training a new guy. So they're pretty good at interpreting all that data themselves and then bringing it to us, but giving it the more simple, the layman's terms to it, as opposed to, hey, your vertical y-axis is a -2 today. Usually we like it at that +1, it's like, hey, you're a little arm side today. We need you to be a little more glove side. Like that's the way to do it. But they're pretty. I think they took that into account when they got like the group that they have together, because like you said, if you don't have a guy like Sam, and just like you, I was fortunate enough to play with Sam, just like I was you. Shout out to Trevor's playing days. But my first year in Tampa, I got to talk with Sam, and you could already tell he was already in that mindset of he's going to be a good front office weapon. Essentially, like he can do anything you need him to do. So having that guy is invaluable to a team when you can make your team better, and then he's a sought after guy after that. Like he'll be a GM at some point.
Absolutely.
He'll do a lot of great things. But we got a few of those guys here that down the road when you see them in a front office, you'll be like, well, I'm not surprised at that, because they're such a good mind that what they were doing now, they have a capacity for way more than that.
Yeah, you came from Tampa, where all the coaches got poached, including the manager here, Rocco, who's done an amazing job. And now it seems like Twins are kind of turning the coaches over as Shelty goes to Pittsburgh. What's the one thing that, since you've come here, you think they've helped you improve on? Like, what is there a statistic or something that you were doing that they've improved on, or are you just trying to hone in on what you were already doing?
I think getting back to what I was doing when I was at my best is what I've kind of learned here with Wes. There's another gentleman I work out with in the offseason. His name's Randy Sullivan. He does the Florida Baseball Ranch, and he's got a PT background, but he's got the pitching side of it as well. So he can make these programs for guys, help you with your mobility, get you back mechanically sound. How you may have been and had an injury or whatever it is, you get out of whack and break those habits. So I'd already started all this stuff, and then when Wes got hired on here, Wes and Randy used to work together at the Texas Baseball Ranch. So what Wes was wanting everybody to come in here and do, I was already 3 months into it. And so I kind of got an early crash course on how getting more out of your body is what Wes is all about. So your movement patterns, your mechanics, you can take your stuff up by not doing anything differently, by, not gaining arm strength, whatever it is, but the way your body moves can be tweaked. And that's what I've been able to do, is kind of get that separation, a little more flexibility. And now I'm creating just that little bit more of a rubber band effect, which has made my velo go up, which helps everything else out. As we know, it's just kind of been one of those things where it lined up perfectly for me. Like, who would have thought the guy I was working with is almost a clone of the pitching coach that just got hired on. So I'm very fortunate, and right spot, right time. But I definitely feel like I'm back to better than where I was when I was at my best.
All the preparation, analytics, and stuff that goes into projecting or changing or tweaking, what's the result data that you judge your past seasons on? Is it still ERA? I know it used to be wins. Kind of got away from that.
Yeah.
Is there something you look at that, like, the first stat you go to?
So first stat that I had to go to now is the ERA plus stat, just because it's one of those blanket ones, but I like it a lot better than I like FIP, xFIP, and I'll give you a good view of my thoughts on analytics and those type of numbers. Like, it seems like there's whatever number is a positive, there's going to be the next year is going to be the negative of that. So they almost cancel each other out. If you can't be good at everything, and I think that's the way that whoever's making these stats or getting these formulas, it's if one gets too high, they have to rein it back in. Like, it's almost like a betting system. Like, oh, this guy's plus 500. We need to bring him down a little bit. We need to take some points away, whatever it may be. But I think ERA plus is one of those things where there's not there's an ERA minus, but it's a lot more confusing than whatever it is. So I like the positive side of computing everybody's stats, taking the ballparks and all that into effect, and then you kind of know how you size up against the rest of the league, where FIP's kind of my view of that is like an imaginary stat. Like, it's, this should have happened.
Yes.
This maybe it was the bases loaded, you punch out the next three. You worked your ass off, you got out of it, but statistically speaking, you should have given up 1.5 runs. So that counts against you, even though you had a positive outcome. But to each stat, like I said, there seems like there's a counter stat now. So what's going to be important? It's one of those things where players are going to go on the positive side, but if you're using it against a player in an arbitrary setting, they're going to use the negative side of it. So it's what's next, who knows? But that's the one I think is more of a tell-all than it factors in everything, not just your wins, your ERA, your walks, your strikeouts, your hard contact. Like, there's just so many things you can look at. What's important to each pitcher, I think, is the type of pitcher that you are. If you're a strikeout guy, you want to look at, your batting average against could be very low because that means you have great stuff, whatever it may be. If you're a contact guy, you want your ground ball rate to be really high. I'm a fly ball guy, so I want my home run rate to be down because that means that they're fly balls, they're not home runs. So that's the kind of things personally that I look at.
Are you fingers crossed about the balls coming up?
I mean, I don't want to even say what I'm thinking right now because I don't want to jinx anything. But I'll leave it at. I did pretty okay last year with
there you go.
Without with a ball being a
Missile.
bouncy ball,
Yeah.
a Titleist or whatever we're gonna call it. So I don't know. I was pretty okay with it. So if they want to keep it that way, it did okay for me last year. But I don't want to.
Have you felt a difference this year in spring?
Spring's so weird. Like everything feels weird in spring.
Yeah.
So I need that like season to roll around where it actually says Major League Baseball, not Florida spring training logo, because maybe they just puts different stamps on different situations. But it's just one of those things. It's like I'm trying to think of a good analogy for it. Like what's the word I'm looking for a conspiracy theory. So.
Ooh.
It's people believe it. Pitcher, we feel a difference, whatever it is. The outside world says
we all
different.
saw
So
it.
it's like,
I saw
is there a bigger thing that you just don't want to admit to? And it's fine if it does. Our whole thing too of last year at Baseballs was, if there's a change, just say it.
Yes.
It's not that
Yeah.
big of a deal. Everyone's got the same system, whatever it is. If there's a difference, great. Whatever. Just go out and say it, because it boils down to, it affects a lot of things. If you're gonna work on arbitration system, which I was very beneficial of when I went through it, but that stuff matters. So if a new ERA is a 3 is now a 4, but guys are in that 4 range and the balls are higher than it should have been a 3, like there needs to be tweaks to the pay scale, whatever it may be. Hitters same way. Now everybody's a 30 home run guy and it's the market for power hitters is much lower now. Like power hitters are getting paid less because there's more of them. So, there's real life aspects to those changes as well. I think that doesn't get maybe brought up as much as just the pure, hey, we hit 800 home runs last year. That's really good for baseball.
In power hitters, you got a couple dudes here.
A few of them.
I got like part A, part B. If those dudes go out and they put up a 5 spot early, are you same mentality, or is it kind of? I feel like there used to be this old school approach. You think of like David Wells, and it's like, hey, if we've got a big lead, I'm just gonna throw fastballs and get through that. Has that kind of changed a little bit, or with these dudes, is there a little bit of a mindset change? And then who's the dude you look at on this team and you're like, good thing we got that guy, because we just sat next to Sano, and he was 3 of me.
Yeah, he's a large
He's a big
human,
man,
and he's gotten smaller.
Yeah.
So
that's nuts.
that's a big thing too. But for to answer the first part of your question, there's been games where I pitch it, it's 4-0 before I even take the field.
Right.
So mindset wise, I don't know too many David Wells out there anymore. They're just gonna have the groove heaters, and
Right.
we've seen
Trevor Plouffe rooting for
you
that.
can see five runs happen pretty quickly on a non-good offense if you're just trying to pitch to contact. And a lot of guys, the pitch to contact thing is almost like an albatross anymore. Like it's a rare thing that somebody's just going to go out there with a 90-mile-an-hour pitch, just we'll call it generic, and throw the ball over the plate, because it gets beat around now. You got guys just waking up and rolling out of bed throwing 100. So that's I think really now like pride plays into it, because each day is can be such a special day, and you want to go out there and make the most of each day. And now, especially the ugly terminology is people get paid a lot of money to do really well. So at what point is it all right, let's just speed this game up, let's get through it. And then when it compares to maybe you go out and you punch out 12 that day and you go 8, and it's like, all right, it's 14-0, but our starters just having a career day along with our offense. So that's kind of my mindset on that. And then secondly, we have like Sano, Nelly, and then those two I think are the biggest when it comes to like a show to put on. Right. The other day we had a BP group of Nelly, JD, Rosie, and Sano, and I think that they honestly had to come in and get more baseballs because they were just peppering balls off buildings out there and everything along those lines. So we gotta we got a pretty good power hitting team, but we can probably put together a pretty good offensive line also.
We've been talking a lot about the home runs and the offense, and then so you, as a team, set a major league record for home runs in a single season, and then you go out and you sign Josh Donaldson to add to that lineup. So you know you guys are going to score runs, but talk about like what Josh brings on the defensive side, because pitchers need that.
Yeah.
You don't live and die by your defense, but it's a big part of what you do. Have you been able to see him like move around? I think he's 34 years old, and we watched him today, and the way he moves, he's so athletic. And what does that do for you when you have a guy like that at third base ready to just gobble up all the ground balls?
Yeah, I mean, it shortens the game just by having a guy that that's going to be making the plays, but also making those tough plays too. Like the average major leaguer is going to make all the plays that are to them. Maybe an error here or there, but it's the guys that can do that little bit extra. But it's almost like a given that they give that little bit extra. So all the prime, Arenado, Chapman. Those two especially. I mean, those are the platinum, Gold Glove winners year in and year out. You expect them to make those great plays, and it's almost like it's a. If they don't make it, you're almost blindsided by like, all right, what do I do now? But I think over the years watching him in Toronto, playing against him all those years, it's like his defense always stood out to me because he's one of those guys. He always made it look smooth, and he has a great arm to go along with it. So. He just knows, for a guy that has such a great bat like that, to have that good of a glove on him that never gets talked about because he's such a talented hitter is a rarity, and he's always in the top like 3 of third basemen. I don't think he's ever won a Gold Glove, but he should be right up there every single year. So, and I think Miggy deserves a lot of credit too for kind of vacating third base and saying in his our pursuit of him is like, hey, I'm happy to move to first base. So goes to show you that he's a team player and he's willing to adjust to a new position because he knows the type of player that JD is.
Yeah, as big as Miggy is, you guys saw him. I mean, he can move.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys. It's very surprising how well he can move for his size.
And a absolute howitzer too.
Yes, he's got a great arm. So yeah, Longoria, Plouffe, and now Donaldson. I mean, you just had some great.
I've been
third
very
basemen.
blessed at the hot corner, you might say.
And how'd your guys' friendship start? Was it when you went to Tampa?
Yeah, Tampa.
Did you hate him? You're like LA.
No, there's not a lot. I'm the type of, I don't make any judgments until I meet somebody. But no, you get along. You're around long enough. You play against guys, and it's like the one guy that I had a mindset of, like a preemptive thought before I even met him. It was a positive way. It was Joe Mauer. Like he was the only guy that I've ever not known that I was like, that dude's got to be the greatest dude in the world.
And
lo and behold, I meet him and play with him for a year, and he is like the man's man, the all-American guy, and exactly as I had pictured him. So that's the only time that I've been right on having a judgment before meeting somebody. So
it makes you mad how nice he is. He's got all the accolades in the world. I mean, he grew up in Minnesota, then he gets drafted, then he does everything, wins an MVP, and he's just humble. And you sort of, sometimes you're like, is this fake? And then you just realize it is not. He's genuinely the nicest person that I've ever met in my life.
Yep. So. Shout out to Joe.
Shout out Joe.
I don't know. You got anything?
Have you ever been ejected?
Ooh.
Yeah, once.
What happened?
So it was a game against the Mariners. I'm trying to think. It was 16 maybe? 16 or 17. I think it was 16. And gave up like 4 in the first. So I was already pissed to start right into the game. I think I gave up one more. It was 5-0. We battled it back. It was 5-4. I was in the 6th inning, made it to the 6th, so I was like on the up and ups. It's a 1-0 game again in my head. And there's guy, bases are empty, 2 outs. I as you can see, I remember very clearly. I want to say it was Leonis Martin hitting when he was still with the Mariners, but I might be incorrect on that one. Through 2 splits back-to-back. 2-2 count. Should have been strike 3 on 2-2. Run it back 3-2. Move it a little more over the plate. Kirk Casale, another name. makes it look beautiful. It's inside to a lefty. Umpire's sitting right there, staring right over the top of it. I start walking off, thinking, we're out of it. 6 innings. I feel okay with how it kind of exactly. He balls me on it. I'm at like 100 and some odd pitches. I know I'm done, so we just kind of had it out right there, and I just threw my hands up. And I'm like, Jerry Meals. So, yeah, and I don't hold any grudges against umpires or anything like that. I just I'll always remember that. I'll always remember the umpire that threw me out for the first time, and obviously I threw my hands up. I was like, where is that? Like, where are both of those? And he tells me they're inside, and I just said, no, they're not inside. They're they're right over the plate. I'm looking at it right here. Trying. It was just a weird thing. I was like, I'm gonna give it my best effort with still trying to be a little bit respectful in the fact, but yeah, we disagreed, and I was done, and he gives you the, hey, that's enough type of thing, and I think I said, I was like, well, I'm already out of here anyway, so
might as well.
Let's just get over, and then you go inside, you look at it, and you're like, okay, those were strikes. I'm not crazy, because if they weren't, I would have sought him out and be like, hey, I was wrong, man. I can admit that, but you look at it, and you're like, okay, I wasn't crazy. I thought I saw what I saw, and I did, but that's just a matter of opinion when it comes in. Pitchers have a lot shorter of a leash with an umpire than hitters do, it turns out. So, especially when you kind of I made a walk from home, from the mound to home.
Hitters can sneak it in.
Yeah, exactly. So,
turn around.
Yeah.
I have no hard feelings against him this day. I think he's umpired a few of my games since then. It's just one of those things like, oh, I got one on the books, and that's it. And hopefully it'll stay that way unless it's a fiery situation at some point.
How often are you going and checking pitches in between innings if you think you don't know where they are?
I check pitches in between innings every inning just because I want to see what catchers can make pitches look so good a lot of times that you almost get tricked by, you get a ball called and you're like, man, that looked really good. What's he saying? Is it off? Is he have it down? Whatever it is. And then the ultimate check is to go inside and look on the video and say, okay, well, that was more off than what I thought. He brought it back a little bit, brought it up a little bit. So I like to look at each inning, and then it also helps you remember what you did sequencing-wise to that hitter. So I kind of use that as a tool of going forward off facing this guy the next time, what I do to him the first time, because they're checking the same stuff. They know what you did to him the first at bat, so it's that pitcher, catcher, hitter, cat and mouse game.
Match.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so you
cool.
kind of have to stay one above it, but it's a good check system of, am I seeing it correctly, or is it Garv does a good job presenting pitches, so you might be tricked here and there.
Nice. Last one, 9 of you versus 9 of Plouffe.
Prime Plouffe.
Brian Plouffe, and he was a pitcher in high school.
I was a hitter in high school too.
Okay.
Give me this mic. I need to defend myself. You go first.
I win.
I haven't seen you swing, so this is going to be tough for me.
I got a couple hits, couple RBIs.
Did we look up my stats? Because they're probably not good.
No, we didn't look up our stats again. We were talking about it, but we didn't look it up.
5 seconds.
When are we taking, are we all, my glory days of when I was a hitter in high school compared to my pitching now? Or, do you get to pick and choose what player you are?
I think
you know what I mean?
peak pitcher, peak hitter.
Okay.
I think you probably...
But what about peak pitcher for you when you were in high school?
No.
Can you take your high school stuff and bring it out?
No, just as a position player.
Okay.
Yeah. These questions we've kind of been asking guys, and I'm starting to side on the side of the pitchers. Because how many runs am I going to put up against Jake Odorizzi as a hitter? 4? 5? That's I'm just I mean that's
no
not,
the way I'm thinking about it is if we would play this out and you got 9 at bats continuously off me, you were the only hitter.
That's true.
You would start getting into that. You would start getting into that. Okay, I've seen him once, twice, 3 times, and now it's 9 times later. And
oh God.
All right, you ready for your stats? 8 plate appearances, 7 at bats, so 1 walk. That was back in 14. 2 hits.
Okay.
286.
286. No extra base hits.
Not great slugging. Okay.
Yeah. So a 661 OPS.
That's kind of
375 on base percentage there.
yeah, 3 for 8 when it comes down to it. How many strikeouts?
3.
Okay, we're
This
evened out.
is pretty even.
3 for 3.
Yeah.
You get 3, I get 3. We
Damn.
can piece together the rest. So we're playing into 20 innings apparently.
How's your defense though?
Oh, defense.
Pretty good, yeah.
If you had to play position for an inning or a game, what would you feel most confident in?
Somewhere on the infield. We've
Yeah?
talked about this. Gibby and I used to talk about this all the time. Who was just talking?
Yeah.
He was always going to be the replacement outfielder.
Okay.
He was always shagging and running around, and he would be the first to tell you that he was going to be the outfielder. He's
True.
seen it. He's heard it. I played shortstop when I was growing up, high school, whatever it is.
Okay.
So that I'm way more comfortable on the infield. And I think pitching too, like ground balls, like you get ground balls a lot more than anything else. So
Yeah.
That's a thing.
back in the day, it used to really be,
Back
but
in the
that
day.
pitching's really
Ah,
hampered
you're
that.
still doing all right in your
Yeah.
day. You're still doing pretty
But I
good.
say back in the day, I mean like 17, 18, when we were all just at our peak physical form of you could do anything when you're a high school kid. But no, I think
Let's say tie. We tie.
yeah, I'm fine with the push.
Ty, yeah, Jake wins. Spring training, family and stuff is here. You got anything for us or Trevor as part of the media now? If you have any questions, now's the time.
No, I've seen Trev. He makes the appearances at the Hall of Fames for the Twins coming out,
Yeah.
and he makes his pit stops around. So I
He's
actually
still
get to see
pretty
him.
popular.
Yeah.
He was getting some big love today.
Exactly.
A little juice, he keeps calling it. He keeps
Exactly,
calling
and
it.
I think that's honestly like the way Minnesota treats their ex-players is pretty special. With compared to a lot of places that I've been, and they do a really good job of, even if it's been 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it may be. Like you come back and you're part of the group again. So they do a really nice job, and it's fun to see everybody. Like he comes back. Morneau's there all the time. Joe, Tori, Hawk, like all these people. There's just a good. It's always fun to have. I hate this is gonna be an ugly word. Ex-players come back and like you get to hang out and talk. Because it's when you're out of a locker room, it's like the off season. It's kind of weird to get your lingo back in order and be a normal person when it comes to you get back in the locker room. And there's so much that dynamic is so much different. And when you come back, you just see everybody like light up, and it's like, man, this is fun again for a couple days. So it's they do a really good job here.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for sitting down with us, man. We appreciate
For sure,
it.
guys. Thanks for having me.
Let you get back to your family and your off day now.
Yeah, right.
Every day.